The night sky over Earth was still, eerily so. From the ground, it seemed like any other night, the stars barely visible against the lights of the bustling cities below. Yet, something different was in the air. Hidden beneath the surface, at Earth's most secure military base, a decision was being made that would forever alter the course of history. The global threat of alien domination had been growing for years, and no one had dared to resist. The Galactic Council, a massive interstellar alliance of technologically advanced alien races, had long considered humans a weak, insignificant species. For decades, Earth's military had been preparing quietly. Not even the most senior leaders knew the full extent of the project now nearing its completion. Scientists and engineers, working in secrecy, had developed technology that humans could only dream of, cloaking devices capable of making entire fleets invisible to alien radar. But it was more than just technology. Earth had begun to harness the power of quantum computing, a force that allowed them to predict and counter enemy moves with an accuracy that stunned the brightest alien minds. Inside a hidden underground lab, an ominous hum filled the air. A large control panel flickered to life, its glowing symbols marking the activation of the world's first experimental weapon, codenamed Sentinel. This was the culmination of years of research, and it wasn't just a weapon. It was Earth's final answer to the question that had plagued every mind for years. What happens when the aliens come? The Galactic Council, confident in their superiority, had made a fatal mistake. They underestimated the one thing humans possessed that no machine or advanced alien force could replicate: the drive to survive. While the alien races relied on their overwhelming military might, humans had something more: determination, adaptability, and the strength that came from knowing they had no choice but to win. Out in space, the first wave of alien ships moved swiftly toward Earth, their hulls glinting in the dark expanse of the universe. The Council's fleet, massive and heavily armed, was poised to strike, prepared to wipe Earth from existence. On their sensors, Earth was still a mere dot, insignificant, vulnerable. It had never been a threat until now. The first signs of the storm began to show when an alien scout ship entered Earth's orbit. It was a small, sleek vessel designed to sneak past defenses, gather intel, and return to the fleet. The ship had no idea what was about to happen. As it descended through the atmosphere, its sensors registered a strange anomaly, a sudden, inexplicable energy pulse. Then, the ship's systems began to fail. One by one, its navigation systems, weapons, and communication channels cut off, leaving the crew stranded in the silent void. The last transmission sent from the ship was a garbled distress signal before the ship plummeted into the ocean below. Back on Earth, military officials were in disbelief. How could a scout ship of that size be taken down so easily? They had expected a fight, but this was a warning. The Galactic Council wasn't just about to attack. They were already here, and they were unprepared for what was coming. The military's top brass rushed to the command center. Panic was spreading, but there was also a strange sense of anticipation. They had no idea what had just happened. Was it a fluke? Or had Earth somehow turned the tables on its would-be invaders? The questions were endless, but one thing was clear: Earth was no longer the helpless planet it had once been. As the command center buzzed with activity, the lead scientist behind Sentinel, Dr. Victoria Harris, watched the live feed of the destroyed scout ship on the large screen. Her expression remained calm, almost detached. She had known this moment would come. She had known the risks, the challenges, and the uncertain future that lay ahead. But humanity had done what no one had thought possible. They had built a weapon powerful enough to stand against the greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. "We've done it," she whispered under her breath, barely audible over the chaos surrounding her. "We've finally done it." But despite the success of the cloaking device, the danger was far from over. The alien fleet was on its way, and Earth still had to prove it could survive. One victory, one destroyed scout ship, meant nothing against the hundreds of alien ships that were now descending toward Earth's atmosphere. The real test was yet to come. Minutes later, an alert flashed across the screen. The Galactic Council's fleet was entering Earth's orbit, and their sheer size and firepower were intimidating. The time for stealth was over. Earth had only moments before the aliens would unleash their full force. Dr. Harris glanced at the officer in charge of operations, a grizzled veteran named Captain Riker. "What's our status?" she asked. "We're ready," Captain Riker replied, though his voice was laced with uncertainty. "The cloak is holding, but we won't have much time before they detect us. We'll need to launch the counterattack immediately." The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone knew what was at stake. If they failed now, Earth would be destroyed before it even had a chance to fight back. But if they succeeded, if they could use the element of surprise to their advantage, they could turn the tide of the entire war. It was humanity's last chance, and the stakes had never been higher. As the countdown began, Dr. Harris stepped forward, her fingers trembling as she keyed in the final command. The experimental weapon, Sentinel, was activated, and as the first wave of alien ships came into range, Earth's cloaked fleet was ready to strike. Suddenly, the quiet of the night was shattered. The sky above Earth exploded with flashes of light as cloaked human ships fired upon the unsuspecting alien fleet. The force of the attack rocked the invaders back, leaving them disoriented and confused. They had no idea what had just hit them. The storm had begun. The first shots were fired without warning. They were quick, precise, and devastating. Earth's fleet, using newly developed cloaking technology, emerged from the shadows of space like ghosts, their weapons primed and ready. The alien ships, massive and imposing, had never expected to be under attack. The surprise was complete, and it left the Galactic Council's fleet scrambling to understand what was happening. The humans were fighting back, but this wasn't just a desperate last stand. No, this was a calculated strike, a blow dealt with precision. Earth's new weapon, Sentinel, had been designed for this moment. Each shot from the human ships hit its target with unerring accuracy, cutting through the alien armor as though it were paper. The invaders were caught off guard, their sophisticated shields buckling under the pressure of humanity's newfound power. Inside the command center, Dr. Victoria Harris watched the chaos unfold on the large screen. Her face was impassive, yet a flicker of pride flashed in her eyes. The weapon she and her team had designed was working flawlessly. But it wasn't just the weapon that gave humanity an edge. It was their ability to think differently, to approach problems in ways the aliens never considered. The humans had known for years that the Galactic Council thought them weak, insignificant. Now, Earth was showing them just how wrong they had been. In space, the battle raged on. Alien ships, once proud and indestructible, were now under attack from all sides. The humans had a secret weapon that even the most advanced alien technology couldn't counter: unpredictability. While the aliens relied on sheer firepower and strategy, humans were adaptable, able to make decisions on the fly. They weren't bound by rigid tactics or cold logic. They were driven by survival, by the instinct to protect their home. But the humans weren't the only ones capable of surprises. As the battle intensified, a new figure appeared on the Galactic Council's flagship, a high-ranking general known for his ruthless efficiency. His name was Commander Zorath, and he was unlike any opponent the humans had faced. With a reputation that stretched across galaxies, Zorath was known for his unyielding determination and his ability to turn the tide of battle in his favor. He had led countless campaigns, each one ending in the utter destruction of his enemies. But Earth was different. This was not a planet that could be crushed so easily. Zorath stood on the bridge of the flagship, his cold eyes watching the unfolding chaos. The humans were more formidable than he had been led to believe, but they were still beneath the Galactic Council. His fleet would regroup, adapt, and soon, Earth would be crushed under the weight of its own hubris. He turned to his second-in-command, a tall alien with shimmering silver skin. "Activate the fleet's countermeasures," he ordered. We'll show them that even their technology can't stand against us." The alien nodded and quickly relayed the command to the rest of the fleet. Within moments, the alien ships began to deploy new systems, energy shields that would detect and counter the cloaked human ships. The battle had shifted, and Earth's advantage was beginning to fade. Back on Earth, the human commanders were aware of the shift. Captain Riker, who had been overseeing the battle from the command center, cursed under his breath. "They're adapting faster than we expected. We need to hit them harder before they can regroup." Dr. Harris, still watching the screen, spoke up. "We have one more trick up our sleeve. The final phase of Sentinel is ready. We can use it now, but it will require all our ships to be in close range to deploy." Riker's eyes flicked to the strategic map, showing the positions of the alien fleet. "We don't have time for that. If we wait, we lose everything." But Harris was already typing in commands, her fingers moving with practiced precision. "We'll have to risk it. It's our only shot." Captain Riker hesitated for a moment. He knew the dangers, but what other choice did they have? The humans had already achieved the impossible by surviving this long. Now, they had to gamble everything on this final weapon. The command was given. All the human ships, cloaked and nearly invisible, moved into position, surrounding the alien fleet. The moment was delicate. One wrong move, and the alien countermeasures would detect them, and the humans would be wiped out in an instant. The fate of Earth rested on the next few minutes. On the alien flagship, Commander Zorath paced back and forth, his mind working furiously. Despite his confidence, he felt the slightest inkling of doubt. The humans had managed to disrupt their initial plans, and now they were closing in on the fleet, making it harder to pinpoint their exact location. He growled under his breath. "Where are they?" Suddenly, a low hum filled the bridge of the flagship. Zorath's head snapped up. "What is that sound?" he demanded. A technician looked up from his console, his expression filled with fear. "Commander, the human ships are. They're activating something. We can't pinpoint it, but the energy levels are off the charts." Zorath's eyes narrowed. He knew what that meant. The humans were about to launch the final phase of their weapon, and it would be devastating. He was already formulating a counterattack in his mind when the unimaginable happened. The entire human fleet, cloaked and hidden until now, emerged from the shadows all at once. But this time, they weren't just firing standard weapons. The final phase of Sentinel had activated, releasing a massive pulse of energy that not only overwhelmed the alien shields, but disrupted their entire fleet's communication and navigation systems. Chaos erupted in the alien ranks. Commander Zorath staggered as the flagship trembled under the force of the energy pulse. His crew scrambled to maintain control, but it was too late. The human ships, now fully visible, were closing in for the kill. Every alien ship was vulnerable, exposed, and without the coordination they had once relied on. But despite the overwhelming odds, Zorath was not one to give up easily. "Regroup," he barked. "We fight until the last ship falls." But even as he spoke, Zorath knew the truth. The battle was no longer in his favor. Earth had found its moment, and the discovery of humanity's power had just begun. The Galactic Council was in trouble, and the humans were about to show them just how much trouble they were in. The pulse from Earth's final weapon echoed through space, rippling outward like a shockwave. For a brief moment, the universe stood still. The once proud fleet of the Galactic Council was now in disarray, their ships scattered and disoriented. The pulse had done its job. The alien shields were failing, communication systems were down, and their navigation was in chaos. It was a perfect opportunity for the humans to strike. Captain Riker's voice boomed across the command deck, sharp and full of authority. "All ships, engage. Now." Human ships, once hidden in the shadows, now emerged from their cloaking fields, their weapons primed. The alien ships were exposed, vulnerable, and it was time for the humans to make their move. The air on Earth's flagship was electric, filled with the tension of a battle that would determine the fate of the planet. Dr. Harris stood at the back of the command center, watching the chaos unfold. Her mind raced, knowing this was their best chance to push the enemy back. But there was no room for mistakes. The final pulse had drained much of their energy reserves, and their ships were now operating on limited power. They had to make every shot count. As the first human ship fired, the battle officially began. A beam of brilliant blue energy streaked through space, crashing into the hull of a large alien cruiser. The alien vessel trembled as its shields collapsed, and then the weapon's blast hit home. The cruiser's structure buckled under the force, and the ship disintegrated in a flash of light. Riker watched from the bridge of the human flagship, his eyes scanning the battle. The alien fleet was regrouping, but the damage was already done. Their ships were slower to respond, and their commanders were scrambling to coordinate a defense. The humans had the advantage now, but Riker knew they couldn't let up. The aliens would fight back, and when they did, it would be fierce. A new wave of alien ships appeared, their massive forms filling the screen. They were advancing with deadly precision, their weapons charging up for an all-out assault. Captain Riker gave a quick order, and the human fleet spread out, preparing for evasive maneuvers. The battle was about to escalate. Suddenly, a flash of red light cut through the darkness as the alien fleet fired their counterattack. Blasts of concentrated energy raced toward the human ships. The first wave of missiles hit one of the smaller human vessels, causing a massive explosion. The ship, a nimble cruiser designed for fast strikes, was obliterated in an instant, its remains drifting helplessly in space. Dr. Harris watched, her heart sinking. The loss was devastating, but there was no time to mourn. She turned to the tactical officers. "We need to change the battlefield," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "Redirect the fleet. We can't win this fight in open space." Riker nodded. "Prepare for a retreat. We'll lure them into the asteroid field. That's where we have the edge." The human ships began to maneuver, retreating toward a nearby asteroid belt. The debris field, filled with massive rocks and debris, was dangerous for both sides, but it offered the humans a fighting chance. The alien ships, massive and slow compared to the agile human fleet, would be at a disadvantage in the maze of asteroids. As they entered the asteroid field, the human ships quickly split into smaller groups, darting around the massive rocks for cover. The aliens, unable to match the human speed and agility, struggled to keep up. Their larger ships couldn't maneuver through the field as easily, and they were forced to rely on long-range weapons, hoping to hit something in the dense chaos. The battle was relentless. Alien blasts illuminated the dark void of space, smashing into the asteroids and sending pieces of rock flying in every direction. The human ships fired back with precision, using the debris for cover as they picked off alien ships one by one. It was a deadly game of cat and mouse, with every move potentially being the last. Captain Riker's ship, the flagship Indomitable, was leading the charge, its weapons cutting through the alien fleet with deadly efficiency. On the bridge, the crew was working like a well-oiled machine, each member knowing their role and executing it flawlessly. The battle was intense, but there was a calm resolve on the faces of the human crew. They had trained for this moment, and now they were living it. In the chaos of the battlefield, Zoreth, the alien commander, was not one to sit idly by. His cold eyes flicked from one screen to another, calculating his next move. He had seen the humans' tactics. They were resourceful, and they were unpredictable. He didn't like it. His people had always relied on overwhelming firepower and precision, but now they were the ones on the defensive. "Prepare the fleet for full assault," Zoreth ordered, his voice icy. "We will crush them. They think they can hide in the rocks, but we will find them. Activate the quantum sensors." The alien ships began to shift formation, their powerful scanners sweeping the asteroid field in search of the elusive human ships. Zoreth's plan was simple: overwhelm them with numbers, use their own confusion against them. The battle had become personal for him, and he would stop at nothing to wipe out the human resistance. Dr. Harris monitored the situation from the command center, her brow furrowing as the alien fleet closed in. "They're activating quantum sensors," she said, her voice tight with concern. "We need to buy more time. Can we fire the secondary phase of Sentinel?" Riker, watching the alien ships on his screen, made a snap decision. "We don't have time to wait. We have one shot at this." With a signal, the human fleet engaged the secondary phase of their weapon. A burst of energy surged from their ships, illuminating the dark void like a star being born. The blast was designed to disable the quantum sensors, creating a brief window of opportunity for the humans to strike again. It worked. The alien sensors faltered, giving the human ships the chance they needed. Captain Riker ordered the attack, and his fleet unleashed everything they had. The aliens, caught off guard, struggled to regain control of their ships. One by one they fell, their ships disintegrating in bright flashes of light. But Zorath wasn't done. His fleet, though battered, wasn't broken. He knew this was far from over. As his ships regrouped, he clenched his fists in frustration. The humans had given them a challenge, but he was determined to end this. The battle was far from won, and Earth had yet to see the full might of the Galactic Council. The war was just beginning. The tension on the bridge of Earth's flagship, Indomitable, was palpable. The battle had raged for hours, and though humanity had dealt a significant blow to the alien fleet, it was clear that the aliens were not backing down. The remaining ships of the Galactic Council regrouped quickly, their commanders using the time to adapt and bring their superior firepower to bear. The humans had gained the upper hand, but it felt like the tide could turn at any moment. Captain Riker's grip tightened around the console in front of him. His eyes scanned the battlefield, tracking the movement of alien ships, some already regaining their formation after the earlier attack. "Status report," he barked. Lieutenant Finn, sitting at the weapons station, quickly relayed the numbers. "We've lost 3 more ships, sir. We're down to 10 active vessels. The aliens have regrouped, and their reinforcements are arriving. The asteroid field is no longer an advantage." Riker's mind raced. The plan had been to use the asteroid field as a shield, but it was quickly becoming a trap. The alien fleet had adapted, using their advanced scanners to navigate the dangerous terrain. The humans were in danger of being overwhelmed, and they needed a new strategy. Fast. "We need to change the battlefield," Riker muttered under his breath. His mind flicked back to the map of the galaxy that had been displayed on his console just hours before. The solution was clear, but it wasn't going to be easy. "Dr. Harris," Riker called out, looking back at the scientist standing near the command center. "You've been working on the new weapon. Is it ready?" Harris, her face drawn with exhaustion but filled with determination, nodded. "It's ready, but I'm not sure if we can survive long enough to use it. The aliens have adapted too quickly. Their ships are stronger than we anticipated." Riker's gaze hardened. "We'll have to make it work. We're not giving up yet. The fate of Earth depends on this." The crew could feel the weight of his words. For all of them, this wasn't just a battle. It was a last stand. If they didn't succeed, their families, their homes, everything they held dear would be gone. Riker gave the order. "Lieutenant Finn, prepare to launch a decoy mission. We need to draw their attention away from the flagship. We need time." The plan was risky, but it was humanity's only chance. The decoy ships would launch into the heart of the alien fleet, distracting them long enough for the Indomitable to escape and position itself at a nearby abandoned moon. There they would activate the new weapon, a device designed to harness the gravitational anomalies of the region to create a focused energy pulse strong enough to disable the alien fleet's shields for good. It was their only hope. As the decoy ships launched, the battle raged on. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as the alien fleet advanced, closing in on the human ships. One by one, the decoy ships fell, sacrifice for the greater good. Yet, they had done their job. They had distracted the aliens long enough for the Indomitable to break away from the asteroid field. Riker's hands flew across the controls as the flagship moved toward the moon. Time was running out. The alien ships were still relentless, still coming. Even with the decoys in place, they knew that their presence had not gone unnoticed. Zorath was smart. He would realize what was happening, and he would come after them with everything he had. The Indomitable raced toward the moon, its engines firing on all cylinders. Behind them, the alien ships followed, their pursuit as relentless as a pack of wolves. The human fleet, battered and bruised, moved with precision, navigating the debris field as quickly as they could. The moon was their only sanctuary, the place where they would make their stand. With every second that passed, Riker could feel the pressure mounting. If they couldn't position the weapon in time, the aliens would catch up, and all their efforts would have been for nothing. The ship's hull vibrated under the intensity of the battle. The crew worked in perfect harmony, operating like a single, unified machine as they prepared for the final act. The moon loomed ahead. The Indomitable descended quickly, barely avoiding the moon's craggy surface. Riker held his breath as they skimmed the edge of the lunar surface, hoping the alien fleet wouldn't be able to track them as easily. "Status on the weapon," Riker called out, his voice tight with anxiety. Dr. Harris stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We're ready to fire. It's now or never." Riker nodded. This was it. If this didn't work, Earth would fall. With a deep breath, Riker gave the order. "Fire." The Indomitable shook as the new weapon came to life. A powerful pulse of energy erupted from the ship's core, tearing through the void toward the incoming alien fleet. The gravitational field around the moon began to distort, twisting space itself. The pulse of energy connected with the alien shields, and for a brief moment, the universe seemed to freeze. Then, with a deafening crack, the pulse hit home. The alien shields, which had once been impenetrable, shattered like glass. The blast disabled dozens of alien ships, and the remaining vessels were thrown into disarray as their energy shields flickered and failed. The tide had turned. But Zorath wasn't finished. His eyes glowed with cold fury as he watched the results of the human attack. The loss of his fleet was a blow, but it wasn't the end. He had one final card to play, one final chance to end this conflict. "Regroup," Zorath roared, his command echoing through the corridors of his flagship. "Prepare to launch the final assault. This battle is far from over." Riker watched the alien fleet regrouping. His heart pounded in his chest, but for the first time in hours, he allowed himself a small moment of relief. They had turned the tide. Earth's people had shown the aliens that they were not to be underestimated, but the battle was still far from won. The fate of the galaxy rested on this moment, and both sides knew it. The next move would decide everything. The question was, who would emerge victorious? "We got incoming, sir," Lieutenant Finn shouted from the weapons station, his voice urgent. "The alien fleet is closing in fast. They're preparing for one last assault." Riker's jaw tightened. They had broken through the alien shields, but the aliens were not ones to give up easily. Zorath, the alien fleet commander, had made it clear that no matter the cost, he would see Earth's destruction. "We need to hit them hard and fast," Riker muttered. "Activate the fleet's final maneuver. Prepare all weapons systems. We're going to make this count." The crew worked with mechanical precision, each person knowing their role and executing it without hesitation. The Indomitable sped toward the oncoming alien forces, its weapons primed and ready. The entire bridge was filled with a sense of urgency, every second bringing them closer to a possible end, or a new beginning. In the vast emptiness of space, the two fleets met in a violent storm of energy and metal. Laser beams streaked across the blackness, cutting through the void with blinding speed. Explosions illuminated the battlefield as ships collided in a deadly dance of destruction. The Indomitable dodged and weaved through the chaos, its advanced technology allowing it to outmaneuver the larger alien vessels. "We're taking hits," shouted Commander Thorne from the communications console. "Hull integrity is dropping. Shields are at 30%. Riker clenched his fists, his heart pounding in his chest. They couldn't afford to lose the Indomitable now. This was the final stand. If they didn't succeed here, Earth was lost. "Get the gravity weapon online now," Riker barked. Dr. Harris, who had been monitoring the weapon's power levels, glanced at her console. "It's ready, Captain, but we only have one shot. If we miss, we're done for." Riker nodded. He knew the stakes. The gravity weapon was the key to their victory. It had been designed to manipulate the gravitational field around the alien fleet, causing their ships to crumble under the weight of their own mass. But it was a dangerous weapon, and if the timing was off, it could backfire and destroy the Indomitable itself. "We won't miss," Riker said, his voice steady despite the fear he felt. "We can do this." The alien ships, though damaged, were relentless. Zoreth's flagship loomed larger in the distance, its dark silhouette against the backdrop of stars. The Indomitable was now in range, and Riker's mind was focused on one thing: getting that gravity weapon to work. "Target locked," Lieutenant Finn called out. "We're in position. Captain, do you want to fire?" Riker's heart raced. This was it. With a single command, he could end the battle. With a single command, he could secure humanity's future. "Fire," Riker shouted. The Indomitable shuddered as the gravity weapon came to life, a powerful surge of energy tearing through space toward the alien fleet. The moment it hit, the very fabric of space seemed to warp. The alien ships, already struggling with their damaged shields, were caught in the weapon's gravitational pulse. One by one, they began to buckle and collapse, unable to withstand the forces acting upon them. The chaos was unimaginable. Alien ships groaned and cracked as their hulls imploded, crushed by the immense gravitational force. The Indomitable continued to move, its engines blazing as it sailed through the destruction, weaving between falling debris and burning alien ships. But Zoreth's flagship was still standing, and he was not going to go down without a fight. The alien commander had activated his final weapon, a devastating energy cannon designed to pierce the toughest shields. It was aimed directly at the Indomitable. Riker saw it coming too late. The massive beam of energy tore through the void, slamming into the Indomitable's weakened shields. The ship groaned under the assault, its hull shaking violently. "Damage report," Riker shouted, his eyes glued to the screen. "Shields are down, Captain," Finn yelled. "We've lost power to several systems. Life support is failing." Riker cursed under his breath. They couldn't survive another hit like that. But he wasn't about to give up. Not now. "Reroute all power to the forward engines," Riker ordered. "We're going straight for Zoreth." With a final push, the Indomitable accelerated toward the alien flagship, its remaining engines firing with everything they had. The ship's forward hull was glowing bright red as it cut through the battlefield, heading straight for the heart of the alien fleet. Zoreth's flagship, seeing the human ship's desperate charge, fired its weapon again. But this time, Riker had a plan. He knew that if they could get close enough, they could disable the alien ship's weapon systems with a direct hit to the power core. "Braced for impact," Riker shouted. The Indomitable flew toward the flagship at breakneck speed, dodging incoming fire. The alien ships, now in disarray, couldn't stop them. Zoreth's flagship fired once more, but Riker was ready. At the last possible moment, he ordered the Indomitable to veer sharply to the left, narrowly avoiding the shot. With a violent crash, the Indomitable slammed into the alien flagship. The two ships collided in an explosion of metal and fire, the shockwave reverberating through space. For a moment, everything went silent. Then, the alien flagship began to crumble, its massive structure buckling under the damage. The Indomitable had succeeded in disabling the core. Zoreth's reign of terror was finally over. As the alien flagship exploded, Riker leaned back in his chair, exhausted but victorious. The battle was over. The aliens were defeated. Earth had survived. The crew of the Indomitable let out a cheer, but it was quiet, reserved. They had all known the cost of this victory. The loss of so many ships, so many lives, weighed heavily on their hearts. Captain Riker looked out at the remains of the alien fleet, knowing that they had made history today. Humanity had fought back, not just for survival, but for their place in the galaxy. And though the battle was over, the war was far from finished. But for now, they had won. And that was enough. The silence that followed the final explosion was deafening. It wasn't just the lack of sound, it was the weight of everything that had just happened. The Indomitable hung motionless in the aftermath of the battle, its hull battered and scarred from the brutal conflict. The vast emptiness of space seemed almost too quiet after the chaos they had just endured. Captain Riker sat in his chair, his face haggard but determined. He stared out at the remnants of the alien fleet, which was now scattered in fragments across the void. The ships that had once threatened to bring Earth to its knees were now nothing more than floating debris, destroyed in an act of sheer will and defiance. Yet the price of victory had been steep. "Damage report, Lieutenant Finn," Riker called, his voice steady but filled with exhaustion. Finn's fingers flew across the controls, checking the systems. "We've lost over half our fleet, sir. The Indomitable is holding together, but we've taken significant damage. Shields are down, weapon systems are offline, and life support is running on emergency power." Riker closed his eyes, processing the loss. So many good people had given their lives for this moment. Bonner, Thorne, the countless soldiers who had fought to protect Earth. Their sacrifice weighed heavily on his heart, but he couldn't afford to dwell on it now. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. "Any signs of other alien forces?" Riker asked. Finn's eyes scanned the radar. "Nothing immediate, Captain. But the communication channels are still encrypted. We don't know if there are any reinforcements on their way." Riker nodded grimly. The victory over Zoreth and his fleet had come at a great cost, but it was a victory nonetheless. However, he knew they couldn't let their guard down. The aliens would regroup, adapt, and try again. Earth's fight was far from over. "We need to send out a distress signal," Riker said, his voice firm. "Let the Council know what happened here. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." As the crew worked to repair the Indomitable and send out a signal, Riker took a moment to reflect on the war's toll. His mind wandered back to the days before this conflict, when Earth had been a quiet planet, untouched by the horrors of space warfare. Now, humanity had become a force to be reckoned with, a force that had risen from the ashes of defeat to face a more powerful enemy than anyone could have imagined. "Captain," came the voice of Commander Thorne, his face appearing on the communication screen. "We've detected a transmission from the alien homeworld. It's a coded message." Riker's eyebrows furrowed. "What's it say?" "It's a surrender," Thorne replied, his voice filled with disbelief. "They're asking for terms." Riker's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure if he could trust this message, but the words were unmistakable. After everything they had been through, after the sacrifices made, the aliens were now begging for mercy. The thought was almost surreal. The same alien forces that had once stormed Earth's borders, that had threatened to erase humanity from the galaxy, were now cowering at their feet. It was a strange and almost unsettling feeling. The very idea of the enemy giving up felt wrong. It was almost as if they were surrendering too easily. "Patch it through to me," Riker ordered. The transmission flickered and a holographic image of Zoreth, the alien commander, appeared. His once confident posture was now slumped, his eyes filled with a rare emotion. "Defeat. Captain Riker," Zoreth began, his voice lower than it had ever been before. "We never anticipated this. You, humans, are not what we thought you were. You have earned our respect, something we rarely give." Riker narrowed his eyes, not sure if he could believe what he was hearing. Zoreth had caused so much suffering, and yet now he was asking for mercy. We have been fighting a losing battle for too long, Zoreth continued. We underestimated you, and now we ask for your forgiveness. We seek a truce. Riker couldn't believe it. The arrogance that had defined the aliens for so long was gone, replaced by a desperate plea for peace. It was a strange feeling. Part of him wanted to refuse, to make them pay for everything they had done. But another part of him recognized the opportunity in front of them. Why now? Riker asked. After everything your fleet has done, after the destruction of Earth's cities and the death of so many people, why do you think you deserve mercy? Zoreth's gaze darkened, but he did not flinch. Because we understand now. You humans are not just survivors. You are warriors. You fought with a fire we could not comprehend. We were wrong, Captain Riker. And now we wish to end this, peacefully. Riker stood silent for a moment, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Could he trust Zoreth? Was this truly an act of surrender, or was it a trick to lure humanity into a false sense of security? Your surrender is noted, Riker said finally. But know this, if we find any deception, if we discover this is just another attempt to gain the upper hand, we will finish what we started. There will be no mercy. Zoreth bowed his head slightly. Understood, Captain. We will abide by your terms. The transmission ended, and Riker sat back in his chair, his mind spinning. Had the aliens truly surrendered, or was this just the calm before another storm? Only time would tell. Meanwhile, the crew of the Indomitable began the painstaking task of repairs, preparing for the long journey back to Earth. The victory had been hard-won, but it was a victory nonetheless. They had beaten the aliens at their own game. But as Riker looked out at the shattered remains of the alien fleet, he knew the war wasn't truly over. This might have been the last battle, but it wasn't the last fight. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, and they would fight to protect it, no matter what came next. The aftermath of this war would shape the future of Earth, but the people of Earth were no longer the underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with. The universe would know that humanity had arrived. We need to send out a distress signal, Riker said, his voice firm. Let the Council know what happened here. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. As the crew worked to repair the Indomitable and send out a signal, Riker took a moment to reflect on the war's toll. His mind wandered back to the days before this conflict, when Earth had been a quiet planet, untouched by the horrors of space warfare. Now, humanity had become a force to be reckoned with, a force that had risen from the ashes of defeat to face a more powerful enemy than anyone could have imagined. Captain, came the voice of Commander Thorne, his face appearing on the communication screen. We've detected a transmission from the alien homeworld. It's a coded message. Riker's eyebrows furrowed. What's it say? It's a surrender, Thorne replied, his voice filled with disbelief. They're asking for terms. Riker's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure if he could trust this message, but the words were unmistakable. After everything they had been through, after the sacrifices made, the aliens were now begging for mercy. The thought was almost surreal. The same alien forces that had once stormed Earth's borders, that had threatened to erase humanity from the galaxy, were now cowering at their feet. It was a strange and almost unsettling feeling. The very idea of the enemy giving up felt wrong. It was almost as if they were surrendering too easily. Patch it through to me, Riker ordered. The transmission flickered and a holographic image of Zoreth, the alien commander, appeared. His once confident posture was now slumped, his eyes filled with a rare emotion. Defeat. Captain Riker, Zoreth began, his voice lower than it had ever been before. We never anticipated this. You, humans, are not what we thought you were. You have earned our respect, something we rarely give. Riker narrowed his eyes, not sure if he could believe what he was hearing. Zoreth had caused so much suffering, and yet now he was asking for mercy. We have been fighting a losing battle for too long, Zoreth continued. We underestimated you, and now we ask for your forgiveness. We seek a truce. Riker couldn't believe it. The arrogance that had defined the aliens for so long was gone, replaced by a desperate plea for peace. It was a strange feeling. Part of him wanted to refuse, to make them pay for everything they had done. But another part of him recognized the opportunity in front of them. Why now? Riker asked. After everything your fleet has done, after the destruction of Earth's cities and the death of so many people, why do you think you deserve mercy? Zorath's gaze darkened, but he did not flinch. Because we understand now. You humans are not just survivors. You are warriors. You fought with a fire we could not comprehend. We were wrong, Captain Riker. And now we wish to end this, peacefully. Riker stood silent for a moment, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Could he trust Zorath? Was this truly an act of surrender, or was it a trick to lure humanity into a false sense of security? Your surrender is noted, Riker said finally. But know this, if we find any deception, if we discover this is just another attempt to gain the upper hand, we will finish what we started. There will be no mercy. Zorath bowed his head slightly. Understood, Captain. We will abide by your terms. The transmission ended, and Riker sat back in his chair, his mind spinning. Had the aliens truly surrendered, or was this just the calm before another storm? Only time would tell.